Grace and peace to the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, and welcome. This morning's second lesson comes from the prophet Micah. I'm going to add a little bit from chapter 1, who is to rule in Israel, whose origin is from of old, from ancient days. Therefore he shall give them up until the time when she who is in labor has brought forth. Then the rest of his kindred shall return to the people of Israel, and he shall stand and feed his to the ends of the earth. Pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s of rivers of oil, shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul. He has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. What does seeking justice, loving kindness, walking humbly, what to do justice, love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. This is the word of the Lord. And now on this Armistice Day, this 100th anniversary of the Armistice on the 11th month, the 11th day of the 11th hour, we will honor those who have fought. Amen. Now I'd like to invite Ian Scheerer up. Ian and I are going to have a conversation, which happens often, but you get to listen to it now, which is going to be a super big treat for you guys, I'm sure. So, the prophet Micah, I feel like we've heard the do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God, and we hear that a lot. And the thing about Micah is the whole rest of the book is not nearly as nice. The whole rest of the book is how we have not honored God, and how bringing sacrifice to God no longer wants our sacrifice. God requires of us to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. So that's why the author says, well, with what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come with burnt offerings, with a calf a year old? Will the Lord be blessed with 1,000 rams, with 10,000 rivers of oil? Who has 10,000 rivers of oil? I don't have 10,000. What would that even be? Shall I give my firstborn son for my transgressions, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? So these ideas about how we can make it right with God. And God says, do justice, love kindness, walk humbly with God. So today we're going to talk a little bit in the midst of our stewardship season, and the idea of giving a piece of the pie, being a part of the piece of the pie. Ian and I are having a discussion, and Ian is currently not serving ruling elder, but he is a ruling elder in our congregation. He's a member of the Finance and Stewardship Committee and a million other things in the community, not only in our community, but in communities around greater Minnesota. So it's a great joy to have him and here to talk to us a little bit about this. So Ian, what does seeking justice, loving kindness, or walking humbly look like for you?
It's tough on those. Yeah, there are 3 of them. And we're. Should I just keep talking and see what happens? There we go. So, justice for me really. Okay, let's kind of get used to it.
We'll get the other one ready just in case.
Some of you know I'm trained and licensed as an attorney, and we're breaking in and out when we go. There we're a little better. And so every moment of life, I wake up sworn to protect the Constitution of our country. And that comes to different points when I don't show up at all. I don't show up at a prosecutor's office. I'm not a judge. I'm not in a courtroom. It worked earlier. So we'll try this. That one's a little better. So justice we can kind of wrap our heads around, or at least I can. Loving kindness, out of the three, that one's the easiest. You know, we can see kindness all around us. The acts of our children, reaching out for each other and for those of us that need a helping hand when they see it. You know, the acts of kindness. Yesterday, my sons were voluntold to do more than their fair share because they're on the verge of becoming Eagle Scouts. And with that comes the responsibility, so that when it's time for scouting for food and we're out handing out the flyers, inviting the whole community to share food with our food shelf, I think they noted that they got nearly the biggest pile along with their dad to hand out from the troop. But there are those times when doing kindness and loving kindness is simply that, being kind. Living our love. For me, from this trio, the one that's really hard is walking humbly. And humbleness is easy to spot the opposite. You know, we can see arrogance from 10 miles off. And for me, humility, it is hard because, you know, we're always taught to live up to our potential. We're taught to do the right thing, to be your best. You know, in a current political environment, we're called to put our country before others. That doesn't always feel humble. And so for me, there are times when humility might actually be easier to think about of a definition I heard once of arrogance. And arrogance is when one's confidence exceeds one's competence. And that one I can take. You know, if we're more confident than we're competent, then are we arrogant? Yeah, maybe. And so the other way around, if our competence is high and our confidence is low, who are we selling short? Is that a level of false modesty? So I think humility is hard because, you know, God calls us to be who we are. God loves us for who we are. But we're also called to do the right thing. And there are some times when that requires putting ourselves out there. And that may not be easy, but it's part of what I sense we're being called to do. So, Greg, how do you see it? And not just for you, but in our community.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest... So I heard one time that we all agree there should be justice. That, to quote the prophet Joel, that there should be righteousness like an ever-flowing stream, and justice should roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. But we just disagree on the irrigation system. And so what justice looks like is often difficult. I feel like we have we butt heads over what justice looks like. Whether that's, I have my very strong opinions about what that looks like, but those might not be the same as yours or anyone else's, really. And then trying to figure out what justice looks like in public and in our community. And as we were sort of talking about this, and you and I were talking, I was reminded of a quote from Cornel West that says, "Justice is what love looks like in public." So as we love kindness, if we are showing love and we are being loving, then that would be just. Now, that brings a whole other conversation about what is loving, right? Like, is spanking loving? I feel like that's an easy one to say no to, because Or is, what does loving mean? And walking humbly, I think one of the things that I get frustrated by, and I was an athlete, and I was told, never be satisfied, right? Go, you bat 1,000. You can do better than that, right? You can hit all, whatever. You can always be better or do better. And I have these issues with self-esteem, with like my confidence. Like I feel sometimes my confidence far outweighs my competence. One of the things that I have come to know, or at least that was the pattern, is that I am competent. I have gifts and skills, and that's okay for me to say that and to know that. So I think humility, sometimes you say, if someone gives us a compliment and says, that was an amazing, thank you so much for helping me out with my portfolio, or my plans, my life plans. And you say, oh, it's nothing. Well, no, it wasn't nothing. It was, you used your expertise to help someone out. Or thank you so much for teaching Sunday school. Or thank you so much for folding the bulletins, or cooking the lasagna, or directing the children's play, or singing in the choir. Oh, it's nothing. No, it's not nothing. But that doesn't mean we need to be sort of haughty about it, but recognize that we all are gifted, and that our church, our small church, which is larger than the average Presbyterian church, just so you know, has a voice in this community. Here's a funny story. So a couple of weeks ago, the Episcopal Church hosted an event on justice. The answer was, what is justice? The Episcopal rector was thanked by saying, it's so great that the Presbyterian Church did this. So in this community, this church has become a voice for justice, a voice for the marginalized, a voice for those who do not have a voice, which I think is really cool. Margaret Mead says I'm going to butcher this right now, never doubt that a small group of passionate people can get things done, because that's all that's ever done it, or something like that. You should change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that it ever has. So we, being a small group, I don't like this, but we're just a small church. We don't have that many people. We can be confident in our gifts and our skills, but not be arrogant. Right? So that balance of confidence and confidence. Just physically doing work, I have always been rewarded in that. I sort of get selfish about it. I feel great about this, and so I think that's, for me, how it enriches my life. What about you? How does sharing your pie enrich your life?
Pause to restrain the emotions.
For me, it's really not having known any other path of growing up in a family that was regular and was always busy, but life felt richer because of it. So there's some days when my bride will ask, "You volunteering again?" And I can't help it. And some of it's feeling compelled, but it's not some outside force. It's that inner pull. The sense that as we in finance and stewardship put together the list on the back of the letter that was shared this year of how are we sharing our slice of the pie, and you realize it doesn't matter what size congregation we are, we're doing all of this. It's helping out at a very within the family level, that role of ministering whether they're lifelong members or brand new to the community. That sense when life happens, birth, death, time in a hospital, that's one way we have of giving, through that ministry of those that are here and need it. There's that other sense of giving back financially. And one of the things I sometimes struggle with is, Jesus could be so wonderfully ambiguous. What does he call us to do? To love God and love our neighbor. And when did Jesus talk about stewardship? He didn't say go build a church. He said you're going to go out one by one as twos and preach the word and invite others into believing in God and serving God. And the one anecdote Jesus gives us is the groups together. And there's kind of a call for, okay, we need some resources, so they pass the hat around. And the widow puts in her 2 coins, because that's all she's got. And there's some days when, that sense of, am I living up to my potential, can balance with, oh shoot, I'm not giving enough. But she gave in a way that she could, because it helped, I suspect, inspire so many others through Jesus pointing it out. She gave because she could. And she gave what she had because she could be all in. She probably had a sense that if I'm all in with this community, my needs will be met. And I think personally, in participating in stewardship, that's part of it. We have been blessed. And it's easy to look past that. But from that blessing comes the ability to give back, to give forward, to allow for this community to do all of this stuff and so many other things, because it really makes a difference.
Do you think, I've talked about this before, require. It's I don't like that word. I don't like requirements. I like guidelines, right? So what does the Lord require if you really need to?
That one is hard. Because require, you're always trying to live up to. I think God requires of us to be loved and to accept that love and in turn to share that love. But God gives each of us different gifts, different skills, different abilities, different incomes, different traumas, but we share it. One of the things that's part of
our family's life from before we joined Red Light was a period of over a year of extended healthcare challenges. And the faith family we were members of at that time was Mayflower UCC in South Minneapolis. And for over a year, there were members of that congregation that brought food to our house 3 nights a week. And there were many days it was so gratifying to be helped, but also so hard to realize we couldn't do it for ourselves. And there was a member who had cooked this amazing meal and brought it over, and none of us liked it. And so we were accepting it and saying thank you. And as she kind of turned it over, and we had kind of also come up with a way of how do you get all of these people's Tupperware and baking dishes back to them. And so Sunday mornings we'd take them back to the church, and people knew where to go to find them. But as she was dropping it off, she said, "We have to say thanks for you." And I couldn't believe it. She said, "This church was going through some tough stuff, and your family has given us the opportunity to remember what it means to be God's children and to need to take care of each other." And it was really incredible. That personal witness is going to stick with me the rest of my life. So what's it mean for you?
Well, what I was thinking, I can't compete with that story, and I don't think I should. And thank you for sharing with us the idea of being vulnerable in public is such a it's not something that we hold on. It's not we lift up. We don't lift it up. But it's such an important piece in sharing our stories. And I was thinking about requirements, and as I said earlier, I played baseball a lot. And I played competitively for 17 years. And for about 14 of those, I knew what I needed to do in order to stay to play. And I always knew, but I didn't. The last couple of years, I didn't do what I needed to do. It was required of me so that I could play. I didn't put in the work. I didn't put in the effort. I just sort of skated by. And what that meant was my contribution to the team got smaller and smaller until I was no longer on the team. That's why I say when I was in college, I was on the team. I didn't play baseball in college. I was on the team. So I think about that in terms of spirituality and what God requires of me. And it means something so totally different to me now because that benediction that I use, that beloved, with God says every single day, beloved, with you I am well pleased. That is, I'm telling that to myself, to remind myself that I am loved. And just like you said so eloquently, being loved is our first requirement. And then sharing that love is the next thing. And I think sometimes we do love our neighbors the way that we love ourselves. We just don't love ourselves very well. And not in a conceited, arrogant way, but in a way that acknowledges our gifts, our belovedness of each and every one of us. And so part of the requirement that I feel like from God is to own that. Even on the hard days where you feel like you're not one of those people. I am required to do something. And I know that coming to this sanctuary on Sunday mornings with the climate that we have and the conversations, the things that are going on in the world, and Heidi and I made a conscious decision not to shy away from those things because we feel like that is what God has called us to do. And I know that can be uncomfortable. James Baldwin says, Not everything faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. And so we don't shy away from those things, those reports that you hear in the newspaper, because I feel like I am required to have eyes wide open, to not put my head in the sand, to not think, well, it doesn't really affect me, because really it doesn't. None of the stuff that is happening really affects me. I'm fine. I'm going to be fine. But it does affect my family. It affects the people around me, and my community, and my world, and my congregation. And so it is required of me to face it, even if I don't want to, even if it makes me tired and weary, and also to do that in a healthy way. Right? Like, you can just have a fire hose of information and just be overwhelmed by the troubles of the world. But remembering that there are people like Mayflower UCC, you and your family, this family, that are there to help you, to talk about it. And another thing that's required of me is when I face the music, or when I sort of reflect what I'm seeing in the world, to be open to have that reflected back to me. So when someone comes in my office and says, man, you were dead wrong, I need to listen to that. Even if I don't think that I am. And because maybe I might be. Right? Remembering that I am not Jesus. And or God, or any level of, I'm just a pastor, a person, a father, a brother, a son, a husband who's just trying to live the gifts and use the gifts that God has granted me. What do you think about this last question? It's been a while.
I will save it for next time.
Okay, we'll save it for next time. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Ian, for sharing your story of your family and your time with us. I want everyone to know that one of the most important things for Heidi and I is to hear stories. And much like Ian's story of the Mayflower Church being blessed because they could help and reminded of what it means to be church. I know this church was reminded of what it means to be church through David Ryder, who's with us today, and through some of the things that have happened in our history. And we remember those things, and we don't turn away from them, but we also learn from them. And we were reminded that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. May it be so.